It's a wonderful thing we've done for the workers and for the citizens.
Hey, this is Warren Redlick. I'm going to do a different video than usual this time, and I wanted to start off with my favorite t-shirt, which is completely inappropriate for this video because what we're seeing is exactly the opposite of what you see here. We're not seeing budget cuts, at least not yet. On March 28th, President Trump let slip a dirty little secret of the so-called stimulus package. They sold it to us as $2.2 trillion. Are you ready?
It's really potentially $6.2 trillion.
$6.2 trillion. Not $2.2 trillion, $6.2 trillion. In this video, I'm going to show you what that spending means for the U.S. budget deficit and why that matters to you. For starters, here's Democratic Congressman Lloyd Doggett when he was asked about the spending and what impact it might have on deficits.
But I don't think we have an unlimited credit card.
What is the limit on our credit card? What happens when we go over that limit? And what does that mean for you, for me, our family, our friends, and our communities? Congressman Doggett didn't answer that question. No one in Washington does. It's bipartisan. 2 months ago, Congressman Doggett pretended at least that he was concerned about our excessive deficit spending.
We now face more than $1 trillion deficit this year, and according to your report, $1 trillion deficits for as far as the eye can see in what you have described, as I understand it, a totally unsustainable path. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
So there you have it. In late January, Congressman Doggett called running $1 trillion deficits an unsustainable path. And then he voted for this massive stimulus, which will dramatically increase the deficit. That leads to the question I wanted to talk about today. What will the deficit be this year? If we look back starting 40 years ago, going back to 1980, deficits tended to be less than $400 billion a year, sometimes a lot less. Really, it was around 1980 we started increasing our deficits to even get to that level, but we pretty much did not see deficits over $400 billion until the 2008 recession. Under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama, we saw those deficits rise dramatically with bipartisan congressional support. Deficits more than tripled to over $1.2 trillion a year for a 3 to 4 year period. You can see that a little more clearly over the last 20 years from 2000 to the present, that those deficit numbers seem to be coming down, and now they've gone back up again in the last few years. You'll see people from one party blaming the other party, Republicans blaming Democrats, Democrats blaming Republicans, but let's be clear, it's bipartisan. And let's also be clear, budgets are decided in Congress, not in the White House. The Constitution is very clear that spending and taxes come from Congress. Let's look at what's going to happen with the budget deficit for the year 2020, the year we're in right now. The original budget called for a deficit of about $1.1 trillion. That was before we started with the stimulus spending. This particular stimulus package adds $2.2 trillion in spending. There was a little bit before, another $100 billion or so, but call it about $2.2 trillion in additional spending. Well, that would take a $1.1 trillion deficit and increase it to $3.3 trillion. But that's not the whole story. Our economy is in deep trouble. People are making less money. Companies are making less money. Investors are losing money. They're not going to have capital gains. So revenue is going to drop dramatically. At least $1 trillion. I'm predicting at least a $1 trillion drop in federal revenue for the year 2020. So that brings us to $4.3 trillion in deficit. That $1 trillion drop in revenue might be optimistic. I would not be surprised if revenue falls even more than that. It's an awful lot of people who are struggling. It's not really clear where the government revenue is going to come from. But wait, there's more. That was the first large stimulus spending bill. That was phase 3. The first 2 phases were about $100 billion. There's more coming.
This may not be enough. Is there a phase 4 coming?
There very well could be. Actually, the president just broached that.
The first 2 phases were relatively small, adding about $100 billion in spending. Phase 3 added $2.2 trillion in spending. Politicians and others have already been talking about a Phase 4, about an additional round of stimulus spending. And not only one additional round of spending, but they're talking about doing more beyond that. They're talking about a fourth phase and more after that. And again, this is bipartisan. This is Republicans, Democrats, Trump, Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Joe Biden. They're pretty much, Lloyd Doggett, they're pretty much all on board with this.
We've had 3 bills that have been bipartisan. I think right now we need a 4th bipartisan bill. And I think the bill could be very much like the bill we just passed. We have a good model. It was bipartisan. It was signed by the president, but it's not enough. While I'm very much in favor of doing some of the things that we need to do to meet the needs, clean water, more broadband, and the rest of that may have to be for a bill beyond this.
We're talking about at least another $2 trillion in the Phase 4 that's coming. That will take the deficit closer to $7 trillion for the calendar year 2020. But there will be more after that, more beyond this, as Pelosi and the Politico article both said. Who knows how much that will be? Figure another $2 trillion? Figure another $2 trillion, and the deficit starts approaching $9 trillion. And that leaves out some other possible spending. Remember, Trump said that this first phase was really $6.2 trillion in spending.
It's really potentially $6.2 trillion.
Where did he get that number from? Was he referring to Phase 4 and more? Or was he referring to what's actually included in Phase 3? Not really clear. He's not always clear when he says things. In addition to what we're seeing in terms of spending and our budgets, we have the Federal Reserve, which is printing money and buying assets. We don't fully know what the Federal Reserve is doing. A lot of what they do seems to be cloaked in secrecy. There was an effort to audit the Fed in the past. That was resisted. So it's a little bit, we're not really sure even what the Fed is doing. But we know they've been printing money, and we know they're buying assets. I'd like to tell you I fully understand what it means when the Federal Reserve prints money and when the Federal Reserve buys assets. I don't. I suspect it's not a good thing.
But I don't think we have an unlimited credit card, a totally unsustainable path.
Now remember, Doggett said that trillion-dollar deficits were unsustainable. We are now looking at a potential $9 trillion deficit for 2020. So think about this. Usually when you borrow money, someone lends you the money. So we've been borrowing $1 trillion a year. Maybe we're borrowing the money from American investors. Maybe we're borrowing the money from China or other countries. Well, all of a sudden we need to borrow $9 trillion. That's $8 trillion more than we were expecting to borrow. Who is going to lend us that much money? The world economy is down. Investors don't have money to invest. Other countries are busy spending their money taking care of their own problems. So where is this money going to come from? We don't really have a clear answer to that question. The answer is that we're heading for a very serious economic crisis. We're already, with the shutdown, with everything that's going on, our economy is in danger. But on top of that, we're doing this massive borrowing, this unsustainable deficits, money printing, etc. My opinion, that's going to take us into an even worse economic crisis, and I don't think I'm alone in that. This could lead us to a debt collapse. It could lead to hyperinflation. It could lead to other economic problems that I frankly can't foresee, and I don't know that you can or anyone else can either. I'd love to tell you I know what's going to happen. I don't. If I knew what was going to happen, I would probably be investing in the right places or making the right decisions, and I frankly don't know what to do either. If you read history, you know that countries that borrow excessively and print money, that path usually doesn't end well. We've seen this before, unfortunately, and it wasn't pretty. Now, I would tell you my solution to the problem, but anytime I tell anyone my solution to the problem, it just seems to make people angry. So, I'm not going to bother. I think it's obvious what the answer is, but no one wants to hear it. Everyone wants to believe that the government can print money, hand out cash to people, and everything's going to be wonderful and we can all go dancing in the fields. It ain't true. The cold, hard answer is we need to do something different. And every time I tell people what I think we need to do, nobody likes it. So we'll crash instead. The truth is there's no great solution. There's no solution that's going to make everyone happy. And I can't tell you I have a solution that's going to make everyone happy either, because there isn't one. If you're a Star Trek fan, we're in the Kobayashi Maru. Without a solution that's going to work, with governments run by corrupt, evil, stupid politicians, we're going to crash. There's going to be something bad's going to happen. Get ready. It's going to be a wild ride. For your sake, for your family, for everyone around you, I hope you're prepared. I'm doing my best to be prepared for it. I don't think you can prepare enough. But I think we're looking at history. History has not stopped. And we're about to see some major changes in the history books. Look, the solution isn't nice. The solution is we let the economy go back to normal. People who want to stay home, let them stay home. People who want to go to work, people who want to go out, let them go out. It means people will die from the virus, which is going to happen anyway. Yes, some hospitals will be overwhelmed. They're going to be overwhelmed anyway. Yes, triage decisions will have to be made. Those decisions are going to have to be made anyway. You talk about a shortage of ventilators, 86% of COVID patients put on ventilators die anyway. There's no magic solution to this problem. If you ask me personally, governments shouldn't have bioweapons labs. I think there's a strong chance that's where this came from. The United States government shouldn't have bioweapons labs. China's government shouldn't have bioweapons labs. Nobody should. We shouldn't have bioweapons. This is the kind of stuff that happens when we let governments run amok. The real answer is small government, small government, small government. It's a libertarian message. We've been saying it for 50 years. You haven't listened before. You're not going to listen now. You don't like it. You just think everything would be okay if we would just elect the right sociopaths. Well, we don't elect the right people. We elect sociopaths one way or the other. And this is what's coming. If you want the way forward, maybe there's hope that if you vote Libertarian in 2020, that the next Libertarian candidate can actually bring government back to reality. I mean, here's a great example. Why do we have troops in 177 countries? The United States government has been spending $1 trillion a year for a while now, maintaining troops in 177 countries. The Libertarian answer is, we shouldn't have troops in any other country, and we probably shouldn't even have troops in our own country. We can take care of ourselves without a government military. That's what the plan was when the Constitution was written. We don't need a military. We can take care of ourselves. So many other things that we waste money on, the drug war, trying to control borders, so many big government operations. If you want to fix our budget problems, if you want to save our country, we need to go back to the way the country was founded, where we have a small, small, small federal government, and the state governments don't try to do as much either. But you don't want to hear that. You want to believe in fairy tales. You want to believe that your sociopath can make everything better, and you want to believe that the problem is they're sociopaths. Both sides are sociopaths. They're both crashing the economy. Our country is screwed. I don't think you're going to choose the libertarian angle, but it's there. Adam Kokesh, whoever it might be, pay attention to the Libertarian Party. It's the only hope. You don't want to hear it. You want to believe we're a bunch of crazies. You tell me where a $9 trillion deficit goes. I can tell you, the Libertarian Party wouldn't run a $9 trillion deficit. It wouldn't run a deficit at all. Thank you for watching.